I remember when I was probably about 10 years old, maybe I was younger or older, I don't really remember for sure, but walking into a drugstore, which was in my neighborhood, and the magazine rack was there. I would buy my comic books, which were on that magazine rack, and one of the magazines said God is Dead on the cover in red letters with a black background. And I thought, well, that's kind of like a novel idea, God is dead. Never heard of that one before. But what it is, I think, is our idea of God, which can die. Our concept of God. The fact that we have maybe ignored the traditional precepts and so on that lead us to God. God can't die. That's a human thing. That's something that's in manifestation. Something that you can see that walks around or is just plainly in existence, a rock or whatever. That will go at some point. That will die. The underlying awareness, the underlying being of creation can't. Because of the fact that there is no, in reality, there is no separation like that. Rock, tree, cloud, etc., is not really what's there. That which sounds a little crazy, well, maybe very crazy. But there's an underlying state of being that's there, that's within us, that we can experience firsthand. We don't have to believe it. It will be staring you right in the face, the clearer it becomes for you. By quieting your mind and seeing this within you, you can also begin to see it around you. And realize that this permanent state of unity, that is the ground state of all of these things, including yourself, doesn't come and go. It's always the same. The experience is always the same. The variations within the experience have to do with our own participation in the depth or the shallowness of how much we can appreciate the experience at the time. But you begin to realize over a period of time that this silent, still level of awareness is always there. And when you begin to realize that it's always there around you as well as within you, then you realize that this manifest state that we see around us with our perception is not really at all the essence of ourselves or anything around us. That state never changes. The rocks can come and go, and the clouds can come and go, and we can come and go, and the earth and the galaxy and the universe can come and go. Yet that is going to stay there. That's always the same. It's the place that all of these things came from and go to and maintain their being within. And this is the idea of projecting these human attributes onto God, or what we would call God, is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Maybe it's a way for us to understand, and that's okay for a starting point, if we take a saint or Jesus or Krishna or Buddha or whoever as a starting point to understand what this is about. But if we look at the sayings of Jesus, for example, what he was talking about very much is what I just said. It's not anything that we see as coming and going. He came and went. He was around for 2,000 years. Christians would say he's still around. Well, okay, I'm not going to argue that point, and I'm not going to say he's not. But what I will say is he was talking about something much grander than a human being. He did say the Father is greater than I am. And so that Father, that source of all of this, that's the ground state we're talking about. Okay, the source and the goal of all of creation is that. So God being dead is us projecting our image or concept of God onto God, which is limited. If it's a concept, it's not God. A concept is bounded. God is infinite. If it's a person or anything in creation, it's time-bound. It's not eternal. So none of these things that we attribute to God can be God, because God would have no attributes. God would have no boundaries. God would just be, there's no word, of course, for it, even remotely, but I guess the best thing to say would be being, isness, just being, just pure existence itself. So anything we've done, anything that we do, will do, could do, cannot affect that level of being, because what we do is in the realm of activity. Being is in the realm of just being. Yeah, the awareness of that level of consciousness would be, godness, would be this kind of idea that we're essentially just this state of being, and as creatures here moving around and doing stuff in life, we're expressions of the creativity of that state of being. So to say that we would have to become gods, as Nietzsche says, that gods is a very limited idea. You know, in any mythology, Norse or Greek or Indian or whatever it might be, gods are like rulers of certain things. They're bounded concepts. So, for example, in the Vedas from India, they say the gods were born and will die. They're not eternal beings. They're part of creation. They're essentially laws of nature, and they rule over various things. You know, the god of trees, and within that god of trees is the god of pine trees or something. That these are just creative intelligences that exist within manifestation. We're that too. You know, we rule our own lives and what's around us and so on, if we want to. But that's a bounded concept. That's activity. That's not being. So what we do is we become aware of what's already the case. It's always the case. It never cannot be the case. So we just become aware of that. And that then elevates our awareness to the realization that our egos really are these little tiny things, but they serve a very important purpose for us to learn, to get to the state of being, to understand that we are way more than we ever even could imagine we are. Far more than we could ever put in any kind of words, any kind of concept, picture, or anything of the sort. That we're essentially that state of simply being, and that state of being is expressing itself in activity. And one very, very tiny expression is who we are.